Hello, this is Kirsteen's Aesthetic Art and Travel. I started this YouTube channel because I'm often told by friends and people that I meet, "Oh, you're an artist, I wish I could do more art." And then they tell me all the reasons that are stopping them, like they don't know where to start or what to do, or they don't have the time, or they don't know how to learn, or someone told them they were bad. So many reasons. And I thought that I could help with some of them and maybe share some of what I know. And today I'd like to talk about drawing faces. I do already have one brief tutorial on drawing faces on my YouTube channel, but I was going to talk more about it. Plus I've learned more since I made that tutorial. You'll always continue learning. So first things first, I drew these three faces in pen. Deliberately in a light and dark pen so that I wouldn't rub out any of these lines I used to make them. Construction lines we call them, because they're the lines that help me construct my drawing. And also I drew from imagination this one, and from observation this one and this one. And as you can probably agree with me, these two have much more life to them. They seem much more alive and much more like they're a picture of someone and not just a sort of wooden staring picture. So observation, I found a definition for it. The ability to notice things, especially significant details, so important, meaningful. And it comes from towards and look at. So basically observation is just looking. Now I'm going to teach the layout of the face, as it were, what goes with where, but the most important part is looking. And I would say that drawing is 3 times as long looking at the person or the thing you're drawing as looking at the page. So it's 3/4 looking at the thing, 1/4 making lines on the page. So you think of drawing as making lines on a page? No, drawing is observation and then making a few lines. So the place to start is with so many people is to define the difference between proportion and perspective. So proportion, as in proportions of the face, basically means the size of something compared to something else. So for example, if I have this rectangle here and I have this rectangle, I can fit this rectangle into this rectangle about 3 times. Right? It's the size of something compared to something else. Or my hand on the body is going to be about the same size as my face without my hair. Right? So these things are proportion, the way in which things compare in size. Then the perspective is defined very, very complicatedly in dictionaries and art dictionaries, but I have my own version of the definition, which is the way in which things look smaller as they get further away or look different as they get further away. So for example, you know that a road is the same thickness all the way along. Tink, 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 there's your road. But if it's disappearing into the distance, it probably looks narrower and narrower and narrower. But you know that this road is the same thickness here as it is here. All right. So these things are affected by distance, how far away it is. If I point my pencil like this, it looks extremely short. That's perspective. If you look at it side on, it looks long. That's perspective. Okay. How much of the pencil is black and how much of the pencil is wood colored, that's proportion. It doesn't change. All right, no matter which way you put it. All right, it is the size of the thing compared with other things is proportion. Perspective, the way in which it looks different as it gets further away or from a different distance. So if I had trees here, they might look quite big close to the front of the road, and then far off the same trees would look tiny. That would be the effect of perspective. How much of this tree is dark and how much of it is light, that would be proportion. I just find that so often I find people who were told these words in school or by someone who knew something about art, and they haven't really figured out what they are, and so it begins to be a stop. Now, when we're looking at the face, we're going to look at the proportion of the faces today. All right, how far down is the eye? How far down is the nose? Not how they look different as they get further away, but how big are each bit. And to do that, we're going to draw a face with lots of construction lines, lots of extra lines that tell you what's going on. All right. You start with an oval, and then two halves of the face are usually roughly the same, so you can put a line down the middle. Now, the first major mistake that people usually make is put the eyes up here. But if you're actually looking at someone straight on, we're starting with a straight on face, I'll do a sideways face afterwards. If you are looking at someone straight on, their eyes are usually about halfway down their face. So if you see, here is this head of my son, and he's looking fairly straight on to the camera, and the eyes are halfway down, what you can see. You see that? There's that much below the eye, and there's that much above the eye. If anything, there's a teeny bit more above the eye in this picture because he's tipped slightly down with his face. So if you look at me in the picture, we've got this much above the eye and this much below the eye. It's approximately half. Obviously, everyone is slightly different. That's one of the real tricks that portrait artists get good at, is spotting the differences. But looking is always senior in drawing. If in doubt, do the looking. But the eyes will probably go roughly on this line, halfway line. Now, all the action happens in the bottom half. Half of that bottom half is approximately where the bottom of the nose will go. And half of that bottom half is approximately where the mouth will go. Now, a skull is not really an egg shape at all. A skull is an egg shape with a jaw attached. So you almost always have to build a bit more chin on afterwards. And when you draw a person sideways, usually you end up with an egg shape with a jaw attached, something like that, or a spear with a jaw attached and the neck coming out, rather than just an egg shape. I've kind of exaggerated that a bit, but you get the idea. The skull is more like a sphere with a jaw attached, or an egg shape with a bit more jaw. All right, now on the width of the eyes, okay, the space between the eyes does vary person to person, but it is roughly the same distance between the eyes as the size of the eyes. So you end up with same, and about half an eye's distance to the edge of the face. This is if you're looking really straight on. So that's roughly where the eyes are going to go. Same. All right, and half eye size. And if we take this inside eye corner down, approximately there is where the very widest part of the nose will go. So now we have the widest part, and we know where the bottom's going to be. We can kind of tuck the nose in, all right? And we can put the eyes in as sort of lemon shapes for now, so this drawing doesn't end up being too many lines with no features on and get confusing. This part of the nose is much narrower, but it's much more, put that in with shading, not a line later. Now, if you draw a line from the middle of the eye down, that will give you approximately how wide most people's mouths are. I find that like the little corner is out there, and then they usually have the thin bit. You have to look, because like I say, everyone is different. So you do get people with wide mouths and petite pointy faces or big smiles. Here we have so far. Now we have the hair. If you're looking straight on at someone, you usually see a little bit of the top of their head. So for example, in this picture, You can see the eyes about halfway down the face, forehead, and then hair going back the way. If they don't have fringe, the hair will go back from the top of the forehead here. All right, and if they do have fringe or bangs or whatever you want to call it, that'll be coming forward from that point here. So some people have bigger or shorter brow, but usually you see a bit of the top of the head. You see a bit of the hair disappearing behind the forehead. Now, when it comes to drawing the eye, remember that there is a whole ball in there, and it's an eye socket, a socket that a ball fits in. So the face usually curves to go in where that socket is dipped. If you have an eyebrow, it will follow that line where the ball is, usually, although people draw them in different places, or so you really have to look as well, or they grow in different places. And then you put the coloured bit on that ball and the hole which the light goes through. Now, usually when someone's looking at you, unless they're really staring, you don't see the whole of the coloured area. So unless they're really, staring at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's usually a bit covering the top part and even covering the bottom part of the coloured area. So there's a ball in there, but the open window onto it is usually more like that. And you usually get a little corner for like tear ducts or something. I'll just move this a bit closer. So you see the whole ball, whole socket. If you get shading, it's going to follow this socket around. See, if you get light catching, it's going to follow where that deep ball is. Now, when you fill in the center of the eye, there's almost always a little highlight. There's almost always a tiny bit of light catching in there. And I'm trying to find a photograph where the eyes are close enough for you to notice it. Here we go. So you can see that there's a bit of light in there. It's not just solid black, and noticing and leaving that tiny point of light helps it often look more alive. So I'm going to colour in this black bit and leave a little bit to help it seem more alive. And I'm going to colour in this coloured area. Sometimes the highlight's more in the coloured area. It usually has a darker edge as well. Now that eye is starting to look. The double lid there, if it's a Westerner, they don't always, not everyone has a double lid, but a lot of Western faces do. You can put lashes on if you want. Starts to feel a lot more like an eye. On the nose, ears, so that's where the eye goes. I got a bit sidetracked in how the eye goes, but that's where it goes, halfway up. Now, ears, we've got this construction line that goes through the eyes, and this construction line goes through the nose. When you look straight onto someone, their usually ears go from about where the eyes are to about where the nose is. Her face is tipped down, so that's not quite right. This one, she's looking more straight to camera. But you don't usually see the top of it, even without the hair. You usually just see the bottom of it. So desperately looking for a picture that shows it here. And my children are both have a huge amount of hair covering their ears. Here we go. So you see mostly the bottom bit, the top bit's kind of disappearing even if my hair wasn't covering it. So instead of drawing a whole ear like this, which tend to make you look like Dumbo, just a little teardrop down the bottom there, visible usually. Then you usually have to build the chin on, like I said. Far better to be looking at faces, have they got a little crinkle here, have they got a little, as well as knowing these rules. These rules give you a broad idea of where things will be, but observation is what gives you all the detail. So that's basically giving you where the eyes are, where the bottom of the nose is, where the mouth is, where the ears would come. I'll put this other eye in. And That's you got the basics of a straight on face. You have to look at the eyebrow because they vary in height so much. Bottom of the ear goes in there. Now, necks. So many people draw a face and then you get another common mistake is the tiny little neck. The head is one of the heavier parts of the body. You've got a lot of brains and liquid in there. And it actually takes quite some holding up. So even elegant, slim people have quite a thick, the neck is almost as wide as their head, and straight away that should look more realistic than with the skinny neck. And then lots of lovely hair will help you hide any mistakes you've made. Also, people usually do have some volume of hair around their head. It's not usually glued tight to their head unless it's utterly wet. Even people with not all that thick hair, they still have some volume right there. Shading is a whole different story. So under the hair, you're going to get dark areas. Under the, mostly light coming from the sun is going to come down the way. So under the chin can be one of them. The top lip's almost always darker than the bottom lip, although again, do observe, because that one catches, the light from above. Usually get a little shadow under that lip, get little shadows under the chin, shadows under the nose, and they'll follow that shape. I think it might be, yeah, I was going to say what it might be called, but I can't actually remember, but this little shape under the nose, they'll follow that. And also the nose itself going to be wider at the bottom usually. I mean, obviously some people have like more bulbous noses, darker there. Again, you shade the eye socket, bearing in mind that it's a socket, it's a hole with a ball in it. So these lines follow the ball, these lines follow the ball, the shade lines follow the ball. That gives you where the light and shade is going to appear more and more. You often get some under the fringe, just like in there. And as people get older, you get more shade across there, maybe actual lines. This bit usually has a narrowing bit, again where that socket is and the cheekbone. And you sometimes get a little bit of light on the ear, so you can shade behind it to let you notice it. So really looking for where the light is, because it can be coming from all sorts of different angles, but whatever angle it's coming from, it's probably going to settle more in the dips, which are in the eye, under the nose. People get a bit of a line there sometimes. And under the chin, and obviously you need to fill in this dark bit iris. So this is already starting to look a bit more like a person, and what you can now do is rub out some of your construction lines, which will really start to help take away any weird straight lines that don't actually belong on a face. They were just there to help you get things in the right place. And now you can see that it starts to look a lot more like a person without the construction lines. So that's the basic proportions. Now you can apply them to a sideways face. So again, you've got a bowl with a jaw built on, or possibly more of an egg shape with a bit more jaw built on, depending on how you sort of see the face. And then you'll see that the eyes are still kind of halfway up. So stick a line in for the eyes, the nose is still halfway up what's left, and the mouth halfway up what's left from that. So then when you get a lovely little profile like my son here, you're going to draw that in, it tells you where each of these features is going to happen. So you get a socket for the eye, very noticeable in profile. The nose is sticking out. The bottom of the nose is going to be roughly where that line is. Mouth from the side tends to look like a little heart shape. So the mouth is on this line, and built the chin on underneath. Already starts to look a bit more like a person. Nice thick neck, and you might have to build a bit on the back just to make sure they really have a proper skull there. Eye from the side tends to look like a little triangle, something like that. There's still a socket in there, so if you shade it, and if you have an eyebrow, it's still going to follow that circle that's in there. And the hair will still, the ear still goes on this line between the eye and between the nose. Very useful rule when you're looking from the side, because you're much more likely to see much more of the ear of a person from the side. All these funny little lines in the ear, again, it's best to do them with just a bit of light shading, not a strong line, because they tend to otherwise look a bit harsh. So if they just have a really short haircut, it's probably going to go around here like this. But if they have a bit more hair, they might have, you know, some in front of the ear and some behind, and a bit more on the head, whatever they're going to have, hairstyle wise. Then maybe they have a fringe or some pieces coming down this side, but you can see that the rule is the same. The eyes are about halfway down, and then the nose half of that, the mouth half of that, the ears are between this line, and nice thick neck. So any really way that you want to face the head, so perhaps they're looking up, then you put that center line in the face like this, and then halfway up eyes are going to be more like this, and halfway up nose is going to be more like this, and halfway up mouth. And then you know, okay, so the nose is going to go on that line, and the mouth is going to be on that line, and the eyes are going to be on this line. Obviously I'm doing very fast sketches here, and the hair is going to start occurring from here, and we're going to have to build the chin on, because it's not really an oval, it has a jaw. And so you see she's looking up, and sorry, that eye went really very odd. So you can see she's looking up and looking down likewise. So I want to make her looking down, or him, and put these lines like this, halfway down line, halfway down that, halfway down that. There goes the nose. There goes the eyes are going to be on that line. The mouth is going to be on that line. Build the chin on. And, you know, remember there's a little socket in there. As you can see, this is a really quick sketch with no photo or model, so it's never going to be as amazing as all that. But you can see the principles of getting things roughly in the right place. And then if you add to that good observation, really looking at who you're drawing, or what you're drawing, then that really helps. I think I've got a few more here. This is from the side, again looking down, looking up, and yeah, there's one there that this is showing the proportions again. As you can see, I've done a little eye here, and you can see I've done one with no point of light in it, and one where I put a point of light in it. You can see how much more alive that one looks. And yeah, so that's the basics. And the halfway eye line and the nice thick neck will already make a big difference to how real your faces look. So if you're enjoying this, please do like and subscribe and hit the bell. I will keep going anyway, because I really want to share all the cool things I learned about art with anyone who's interested, really. Thank you very much for listening. Bye bye.